One other thing I want to bring up then with the rent hikes, people keep saying, well, inflation, everything will go up. We can assume these aggressive rent hikes, and maybe in some areas you can because population growth, demand, etc. But in general, if you're in a C class, even call it B class, do you see wages keeping up with inflation? If you're someone making 50 grand a year or whatever, do you see that person's wages will keep up with inflation and everything else? Or is any rental increase going to be more so on you're in the right place where there's demand for your units?
Yes and no. So I'm going to give you a yes and no answer, right? So if rents continue increasing at the maddening 12% level that we've seen in the last 12 months, 12%, yeah, that makes no sense at all. Obviously, it has to stop, right? That is non-sustainable. But let's talk about a 6% rent increase, right? Most people are like, salaries don't go up 6% in the US, therefore 6% rents are unsustainable. That is another non-data driven statement. The only way for me to prove it to you that 6% rents are in fact sustainable in a 3% salary increase environment is to give you an example. The example is straightforward. Okay, so Mark has some tenants. They live in Chicago. And it's a family of 4 people, and they're lower middle class. They live on the South Side, and they make $60,000. So husband and wife working, they make 60 grand a year. With me so far, right?
Yep.
And they have 2 kids, and they live in a property that Mark has. It's one of those South Side flats, and the rents, even though the rents are higher now, I'm just going to use $1,000 because it's an easy example. So they're paying Mark $1,000 a month for this property, right? Now, this year, their salary goes up 4%. Inflation is very high right now, so 4% increase in income are not unusual. 4% of 60 grand is $2,400. Now, what most people assume is that, oh yeah, but only like 20 or 30% of that can go towards rent. No, John Burns says, and a lot of economists say that today people are putting 50 to 60% of their increases in income towards their rent. What is the rest going for? Food. So almost all of the money that we're making at this point, that have made in the last few years, is going towards food, gas, and rent. None of it is going towards making people have a higher quality of life, or going to more movies, or going to more vacations. So now let's talk about this $2,400. Let's assume that 50% of that is going towards rents, right? That's $1,200. Now think about it. Mark was charging $1,000 a month for a unit. If $1,200, 50% of this $2,400 that this family makes goes towards rent, Mark can increase rents by 10%. From $1,000 to $1,100. Now, of course, my example is somewhat self-serving. In the long run, though, I think it's fair to say that people can make a 4% increase. A 4% increase in their salary actually equates to somewhere around a 6 or 7% increase in rent that is sustainable. Now let's back off on the salary increases. In an environment where there's a 3% increase in salaries, you can usually sustain a 5% increase in rent, not a 3%. But you never hear about this in a podcast because everyone assumes 3% increases in salary equals 3% increase in rent. No, look at the allocation, right? Every dollar that comes in, 50% of it is going to rent increases. Therefore, 3% salary increases actually equate to 5% rent increases. And that's what's sustainable. It's horrible news for the US because quality of living is going down because every dollar that's coming in is basically just going towards rent, food, and gas. But it's also the truth